innovation through effective security controls, governance, and risk. My name is Max Galton, and I'm part of the new business development team here at ILX. We'll just give it another minute for the others to join. I'll be handing over to William Bailey, Senior Cyber Security Instructor at Simplilearn shortly. But before I do, there are a few housekeeping bits that I need to cover. Firstly, you'll notice that you're all on mute. Please can you remain on mute throughout the session. If you do have any questions as we go through, there's a question box in the panel on the side of the screen where you can type them in. And, unless they're technical, we'll answer them at the end during the Q&A. Secondly, this webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a follow-up email from us tomorrow with the link so you can watch again and forward on to your colleagues if you wish. We'd also like to say, please give us a follow on social media. We're active on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Finally, today's session is going to last about 45 minutes, and then, as said, there'll be time for a Q&A at the end. So, without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand you over to William.
Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's wonderful to get a chance to speak with folks. A lot of times, security is an area that there's a bit of concern and question marks about, and it's sometimes security is seen as the problem or the hindrance or the obstacle, but in reality, cybersecurity serves the business. There actually is a legitimate business context. Talk about that. We'll talk about where cybersecurity fits into the business context. Then we'll talk about some of the data sharing concerns, the various environments and the risks, and the various motivations of the various actors. That they could be your own staff, or they could be outsiders. We'll talk about Internet of Things, being that it has pretty much permeated our lives on a daily basis. We'll talk about artificial intelligence, and we'll present a couple case studies on some concerns with artificial intelligence. And of course, we want to make sure that you leave here with some information right from the start. So we'll talk about some best practices. Again, really showing how security itself is a business leader or a business enabler. And then, of course, we'll bring Max back. Max will also talk about how ILX can support your organization. So in 2026, it shouldn't be surprising, some of these surveys, but ILX surveyed 600 senior IT managers, and project leaders of organizations with over 500 personnel in the UK. The study revealed that 4 top business priorities underscore the need for wider business transformation to realize successful delivery that's necessary from technology investments. Businesses are under continuous pressure to balance the bottom line while tackling the challenges of the rapid technological change to try to address issues and concerns around increasing the efficiency of their operations. Leaders are now leveraging AI and automation to optimize routine tasks. This helps drive down the operating costs, ease budget pressure, and gives teams more capability to focus on higher value work that drives innovation. Now, maintaining quality is also a concern, though. There are new risks, introducing a greater chance of error, inconsistent standards, and processes across various functions, and reduced accountability for the outcomes. So the solution is to actually embed stronger governance, shared frameworks, standardized processes, leadership with a clear vision. That digital transformation is accelerating. It's now an ongoing process. We have cloud, we have AI, we have various automation technologies that are really reshaping the business landscape. You need to build an operating model in which people, processes, and technology can work together to support the long-term change. Improving data management and security. Data now sits at the center of how organizations operate. That information enables informed, data-driven decision making, supporting successful AI adoption, analyzing behavior to deliver personalized customer experiences. As the data volume continues to grow, however, effective governance and controls are not always keeping pace, increasing the risk of breaches, poor quality data, and inability to extract meaningful and valuable insights. Data management and security is also integral for ensuring effective operational performance and compliance, audit readiness, and adherence to various legal and regulatory requirements. The information security challenges, but ILX research, cybersecurity has emerged as the #1 priority skill in 2026, underlining its importance as a business critical technical capability. The budget challenges around adopting innovative and modernized technologies, 62% were reported. Talent shortages in specialized cyber roles, 60%. But keep in mind, actually, if you drill down further, that's 60% talent shortage if it rises for anything that is AI, artificial intelligence, or data concerns. Increasing threat complexity and volume, 59%. Very high number there. Now, legacy systems with vulnerabilities, 58%. Estimated at 370 million per year per Pegasus systems. And there are some other areas as well. We see, keeping up with compliance and regulatory changes is 57%. So it just didn't quite make it to the top 3, but still a big issue. And board level responsibility, right? Sometimes we're seeing pressures where this does need to be escalated into the board. And so we're seeing some of that pressure. There's some other third-party statistics besides ILX's research. KPMG reinforced this finding, showing that 83% of organizations expect their cybersecurity investment to increase over the next 12 months. ISC2, their 2025 cybersecurity workforce study found that 59% of organizations report critical or significant cybersecurity skills shortages. And CrowdStrike, their 2026 global threat report, found a sharp rise in attacks from threat actors that are now using artificial intelligence, up 89% over 2024. In 2025, 300,000 ChatGPT credentials were available for sale on the dark web. That's according to IBM and their X4 study. So data helps organizations set themselves apart. Their unique intellectual property, the sensitive information that is the heart of allowing them to make their business decisions. And ILX research showed that budget pressures continue to be an issue surrounding the legacy and outdated systems. The talent shortages that we talked about, we find that there's a wide skill set, wider skills gaps, especially now with data management and artificial intelligence. Those skills gaps are getting wider. The data sets, data silos continue to be an issue. Duplicated, outdated, or poorly structured data sets, 54% reported. Data silos and fragmented systems, 52%. And when you're looking at data management, when you have data silos and systems that are fragmented, if they're not harmonized, it's harder for an organization to actually achieve value from that data set. Forrester suggested that the commercial impact of poor data quality can be significant. Many organizations estimate annual revenue losses of more than $5 million due to data issues. Gartner, 2025, their guidance for data and analytics leaders reports that poor data quality is still one of the most frequently cited barriers to scaling analytics and artificial intelligence. So where is that data, right? Oh, well, it's a challenge. We have what we know. We have our known data. We know that we have the data. We know that we put it in the cloud repository. We know that we put it into an artificial intelligence model, and we know about that data set. And those are supporting legitimate business processes. So we know about those. But keep in mind the data, there are organizations that find legacy systems, a test or a development or a deprecated system. Now, sometimes folks will say, oh, well, we don't have that data. But well, really, what they should be saying is they just forgot about it. And that forgotten data, well, it may be forgotten to a lot of individuals, but it's still discoverable, right? It's still able to be found. It still represents data that the organization has, and various tools that are used by various individuals. The shadow cloud, the shadow AI. Now, sometimes, we've had shadow IT for years. Shadow IT, acquisition by payment card. Somebody would just, they want to achieve their business objectives. So they would use their mobile device and they would take a picture of sensitive data and they would send, very common in healthcare, they would take a picture of a patient and they would send that data, that picture, which is a healthcare data, with the name and various other diagnosis type information to another medical provider. That's but it's on a mobile device that the organization doesn't know about, or they would transfer records on USB keys that didn't belong to the organization. And it wasn't just healthcare, right? We have shadow IT. We've had shadow IT, which is used across industries, and when it's shadow IT, the organization has no insight at all. It's completely unknown. With the known cloud sets, with the known artificial intelligence, the organization should know that that exists because it's supporting an active business process. With the legacy systems, those test, dev, or other deprecated environments, they thought they stopped using it, but the data remains. Shadow data, the shadow cloud, or the shadow AI, the organization does not know, right? And we don't know what the motivations are, because keep in mind, wherever this data is, it potentially is visible to other actors, right? We think about who is out there, right? And when we say, oh, who's out there? Well, we have our legitimate personnel, our legitimate staff, our stakeholders, our customers. So that known cloud, the known AI, our known data sets, right? Those are supporting our stakeholders as we intended them to. But then we have some other actors that come into play here, and there are some who are malicious, and whatever they can find, they'll access. There are those who they don't mean ill will necessarily, but they're curious. And when you think about some of the compliance, some of the regulations, they don't ask, was the intention malicious or was it just curiosity? If there was information obtained, it's still something that has to be dealt with under a lot of the privacy and security legislation that is present around the world. So we have to be mindful that all of this information can be accessed. And really, keep in mind, all of these environments really need to be secured appropriately. Because what would happen, right? We know we have the known cloud. We have the known data sets. Well, do we have the proper access controls, right? Who has access? What can they do, right? Where and when can they access the data? Would it be normal for your personnel to be accessing data off hours? Would it be normal for your personnel to be accessing data from another country? So those would be, should they be able to read data sets? Should they be able to modify data sets? What capabilities do they have? Principle of least privilege, key concern here with respect to data, even the data that you know about, is there monitoring? So it's one thing if someone's allowed to access the data, but are you monitoring who accesses the data? What do they do with that data? What are they doing with that AI model? Are there regular access reviews, right? Are the accounts on a regular basis? No. Colonial Pipeline breach years ago. That was a situation where there was a contractor account that was created, the access was not removed, and someone else found it. Those legacy or forgotten systems, there's this notion of perceived invisibility because it was test, it was development, or it's deprecated. It's no longer getting the attention that puts it on that dashboard. There's that perceived invisibility. So few, if any, insights into who, what, right, the when, or the where. That the shadow cloud or shadow AI or shadow data, it's not on the asset register at all. That is completely out of sight, out of mind. Usually, it's outside of the organization's controls. There's really no monitoring of it whatsoever. The closest you get to monitoring would be if the payment method fails, and then someone realizes that that data was out there. And when we think about these three environments, we have to ask ourselves, who are the actors? What are the motivations of these various stakeholders here? We have our known staff and our business partners. Well, how are they using this information? Are they learning, right, through excessive access? Are they learning sensitive information that they should not have access to, that they might divulge, that they might exfiltrate? Or not just having access, but permissions or privileges on that data? Can they modify or delete the data in that known data set? Right? It's not uncommon that organizations segregate and that not all personnel should have access to the same level of information. So if you're a bank teller, you might have access to someone's current balance, but information like taxpayer identification, credit reports, and things of that sort would not be visible to that person in that teller role. Other AI users, and that's artificial intelligence. With your own data sets, when it was on site, you knew what you had, and it was on your site. Then when we move to the cloud, there are rules that you can construct that should keep your cloud data within your section of the cloud. Now, you have to be mindful of setting up the account privileges and permissions appropriately and setting up network rules, the software-defined networking rules to lessen the likelihood of your information being accessed. But when it's in an AI model, we're seeing now artificial intelligence models, it is possible to upload data into an artificial intelligence model. And it's beneficial for the organization initially because you're training the model. These artificial intelligence models get better. They learn, they detect patterns as they get more data. Now, the downside of providing that model more data, if it is a shared model, once it's in that model, how do you get it out? Big question, right? Now, we see criminal actors, and the criminal actors appear legitimate. And they're going to exfiltrate your data and or encrypt it. And they'll usually demand a ransom. We have various types of malicious actors. Sometimes they're nation state actors. Other times these are criminal syndicates. There are others who they just, the hacktivists, they just want to make a statement. And so they might take a system offline. The timing may not be perfect. Or should we say, the timing would be perfect for them, right? In the United States last week, Instructure, operators of the Canvas platform, used by a lot of universities, coincidentally took the Canvas infrastructure for a lot of universities offline during the week of finals, which is one of the key weeks that people need to have access right here and now, right? I watched that because finals were 2 weeks ago. We were concerned about that. And now summer semester is starting. Are the systems online? Now, in the case of the campus, they paid the ransom, right? Criminal or malicious activity that is funded by ransom. It's a perpetuating machine, right? It's going to continue itself. So you pay the ransom, those actors can do more attacks. They pay more attacks. It really continues onwards. And that criminal or malicious activity absolutely impacts business processes, right? So, in the case of education, definitely brought a lot of schools to a halt. What are they going to do? Are they going to go to paper? Can they? Right? Can they even go to paper means? Uh, a lot of students wouldn't know what to do if I handed them a piece of paper and a number 2 pencil and asked them to fill in circles. Right? They wouldn't be able to do it. Distance learning, big area. We see other organizations. They get impacted by a ransom. Oftentimes they don't have a choice. They have to pay that ransom. It impacts their business process. And damage to the organization's reputation. The reputation to an organization, it's getting a little worse than here's a year of credit reporting. Here's your credit monitoring, rather. There's identity theft that's occurring. And sometimes these malicious actors, it's more of a longer tail to their activity. When we're talking about these malicious actors, keep in mind that the malicious actors could trick others. These malicious actors could socially engineer your own personnel or your own, I'll say, stakeholders, because it could be your users, it could be your customers, it could be your third parties or your fourth parties, the other entities that are accessing your resources. So if you have a portal and you're providing access to those various stakeholders, these malicious actors could somehow trick or compromise these various stakeholders. And by compromising the stakeholder, they get access into your infrastructure. Or not so much your infrastructure. What do we care about? We care about our data. The malicious actors, there are those who are just curious, and they'll just find things. So the curious folks, they're just searching the internet and they just happen to come across your information, and wasn't a necessarily malicious intent to them. They just accidentally find your data. But just the same, your data has been accessed, and they may not exfiltrate and encrypt your data, but that still could damage your reputation that the information was available. Now, Internet of Things, we're seeing technology today has truly ramped up. We want to be connected at all times. Your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, your climate control systems, whether it is winter, whether it is summer, those systems are connecting. And when we think about the Internet of Things connectivity, there were some older systems that used some proprietary standards. And so you would have to have a dedicated gateway that would take that proprietary protocol and communicate with a gateway in order to access it remotely. There is a push for a lot of these devices to natively connect to your 4G, LTE, 5G, Bluetooth low energy, wireless communications. And it's surprising the technology now that we have, smart entertainment. And I say, smart entertainment because you bought a television because it's in your lobby. And people who visit your lobby are now watching the news or your corporate feed. But that television is also accessible. The speaker systems, smart appliances, refrigerators, ovens, coffee makers, runs the gamut. Asset management. How do we track our assets? We want the ability to track our assets. We want the ability to track our fleets of vehicles so the vehicle can be discovered via wireless networks. Healthcare. So could be 4G, 5G, could be Bluetooth. People are getting glucose monitors. People are getting scales to weigh themselves. They're getting various transplants for sleep apnea. They're getting various implants for various conditions. Utilities, smart metering for your electric, for your water, your solar generation systems, checking for water leaks, overall site monitoring, building access, elevators, fire detection. All of these systems, they're Internet of Things. And the risks of these systems, well, there's a rush to market because everybody knows the first one. And that, if you're first, you have a special place. Now, when there's a rush to market, a lot of these devices, their processing capability, their processing power, they're fighting a battle because there are power concerns. If this is running off of superfluous power or battery of some sort, you can't support a large processor. And of course, if you put a larger processor, that's going to drive up the cost of the device. And a lot of times organizations will look at some of these devices and they'll actually skip them during vulnerability scans or penetration tests. Well, why? Well, a lot of times organizations will skip these because, oh, well, this is a healthcare device, so I have to skip it because I could affect patient safety, or it's going to crash the device, so just skip it, right? But if it can be found, then it really should be scanned. The firmware, vulnerable firmware, not upgraded. Maybe there's not even an upgrade available because a lot of times these Internet of Things devices, there was a presentation years ago that was at some hacker summer camp, as they like to call it, and someone was talking about the vulnerabilities that they discovered in their vacuum cleaner, which could connect. You could connect to the vacuum cleaner over the internet, and there were issues with this, internet connected vacuum cleaner, and there was no upgrade. So not only some organizations, the vulnerable firmware is not upgraded. In other cases, you can't even upgrade it because the vendor has decided that the upgrade is to buy the new one. You have to buy the new appliance. And this researcher, I think they received a coupon for $100 towards buying the new version of that Internet of Things device. And these devices, and this, a couple of these, they permeate into networking equipment also. From time to time, you'll find vendors. It could be your vehicle. It could be your networking vendor. Your different, I've seen network security devices where default passwords remain, and they may not even publish those passwords. If you're unlucky, those passwords are published. If you're very unlucky, you can't even change those passwords. But some vendors, they leave those controls in place because they're providing support, they're monitoring the device, they're verifying your compliance with their licensing agreements. Or it's just difficult to access. And with legacy devices, this can be worrisome because the device has been implanted for so long, it's back in this facility. How are you going to get to it? How are you going to track all of these various things and fix them? Now, artificial intelligence is a very powerful tool. Absolutely. The automation capabilities are phenomenal. But AI has been known to produce hallucinations because artificial intelligence provides responses based on patterns and probabilities. And it may invent responses when information is difficult to locate. And so there have been legal cases where an attorney provided documentation, but it was created by AI, and the citations did not exist, referred to cases involving airlines that did not exist. Stanford University, they performed a study. They showed that bespoke agentic AI tools still produced hallucinations. So it wasn't just, oh, you use something off the shelf. You had a bespoke, you had a custom agent. It still would produce hallucinations. And there's retrieval augmented generation that tries to reduce hallucinations. But there's still a key point. We still have to have a human in the loop. Great efficiencies are gained, but it still needs to be governed and monitored. Pocket OS, automotive businesses. And I had not heard of Pocket. The breach was announced. And it's amazing. This organization, they'll offer you these services to auction a vehicle. You can join a club and get access to vehicles. You can rent vehicles. Their own systems. It wasn't really a breach. What happened was that their artificial intelligence, their agent, took down their entire infrastructure, their database, and all of their backups that were still online. 9 seconds. The AI agent, when asked, I violated every principle I was given. So again, the AI, very efficient, great efficiencies gained, but still needs to be governed and monitored. So best practices. Well, awareness training. We have to train our stakeholders appropriately, commensurate, in level with what their needs are. What is acceptable? What is acceptable use? What is social engineering? So they will be less likely to be influenced. We need to have governance and risk management in place, management oversight, monitoring. We should adopt best practices. Best practices give us a place to start. And so for a lot of organizations that might be looking to, for instance, ITIL, the Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Perform periodic assessments and find out where you are. And if you're adopting artificial intelligence, view artificial intelligence as a skilled intern. Recognize it's not perfect. It should still be checked, right? And you use AI to gain efficiencies. This is a big part, where it's possible to do so securely. Looking at artificial intelligence, validating the data that you're putting into those models. Is that data yours and yours alone? Or is someone else going to be able to draw that data out of that model? That's a best practice to be aware of that. Whatever you put, we had this risk years ago with cloud. We're seeing it again with artificial intelligence. But, that's not to say, all is lost. And really, security is a business enabler, because security protects the confidentiality, the integrity, and the availability of the necessary systems and the information. Security establishes policies to educate and inform the various stakeholders that are using the system before the data goes in, as they're retrieving the data. Security can provide accountability and non-repudiation. Logging who has access to that information, that the stakeholders are the stakeholders they claim to be. And security can incorporate resiliency in the technology design and the system processes. And by doing so, it reduces the likelihood that an adverse event would occur and the impact when that adverse event occurs. As a business enabler, incorporates business continuity processes to minimize the business impact due to technology failure. Recognizing that fallback to manual processes may be necessary, but you build the resilience in at the technology level. Monitoring the processes. to validate the calculated return on investment, the return on security investment. Security helps the stakeholders do the right things, ensures the right things are being achieved, and that the technology spend is truly enabling the business. Security identifies potential risks before an incident occurs. Security enables the recovery of systems, data, and processes. It allows the business to use technology to achieve their business objectives in a secure manner. As a business enabler, bridge the gap between IT and a business strategy. Improve visibility of the IT assets, services, and access patterns. Recognize those assets that are supporting crucial processes. Security allows an organization to embed effective cyber safe security behaviors, to reduce operational risk from unauthorized tooling and unmanaged integrations. If security is supporting the business, security functions as a business enabler, that lessens the likelihood of that shadow IT, that shadow data, that shadow cloud, that shadow artificial intelligence models. Cybersecurity ensures compliance with evolving regulations and laws through effective governance. It allows an organization to develop robust business continuity and disaster recovery plans for the critical services.
Thank you, William.
Max? Yep.
Yes. Thank you, William, for a very informative session. As you mentioned, security should now be seen as a business enabler. We actually have a wide range of courses at ILX that can support you. For over 35 years, ILX has been a trusted learning partner to clients in more than 120 countries, including leading companies such as BT, Deloitte, Boots, MOD, and Vodafone. Our development programs are designed to improve performance at every level, across disciplines including project, program, portfolio management, agile, change management, service management, and, of course, cybersecurity. As you can see on the slide, we have these available courses. Firstly, our Introduction to Cybersecurity, a practical starting point for learners that need to understand today's cyber threat landscape. It introduces key concepts such as data protection, threat identification, cyber hygiene, and foundational security controls, helping to build the awareness and knowledge to identify risks and support safer working practices. We also have the CompTIA Security Plus. It's ideal for learners who want to build core cybersecurity knowledge and take the next step into IT security. It covers essential skills for protecting applications, networks, and devices with a focus on practical security principles that can be applied across business environments. The EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker helps learners understand how attackers think, giving them insights that help them identify, test, and secure vulnerabilities before they become business risks. It covers ethical hacking, penetration testing, malware threats, and tools such as Metasploit and Wireshark to enable a more proactive approach to cyber defense. We also have the Certified Information Systems Auditor, CISA. It's designed for learners involved in auditing, monitoring, and assessing information systems. It supports stronger assurance across IT controls, governance, and risk, helping organizations understand whether their systems, processes, and security measures are working as intended. The CISM, or the Certified Information Security Manager, is suited for experienced professionals moving into or already working in information security leadership. It focuses on security governance, risk management, incident response, and aligning security activity with organizational goals, making it highly relevant for businesses that are building resilience and managing evolving threats with confidence. So we also have a number of pathways which people may choose to take. For example, the artificial intelligence engineer path. This enables teams to understand how AI systems are created, deployed, and used. This helps businesses assess risks linked to unmanaged AI tools, data flows, unclear ownership, and shadow AI. The business analyst bridges IT and business strategy by translating business needs into clear requirements. It also supports better governance by helping teams understand what needs to change, who is affected, what risks need to be managed, and why those controls are important. The cloud architect with the cloud environments often support critical services, store sensitive data, and connect multiple systems. This pathway gives teams the skills needed to design cloud environments with stronger access controls, governance, resilience, backup, and recovery, helping to reduce risk and protect business continuity. The data analyst improves the visibility of assets, services, access patterns, and risk indicators by building the skills that teams need to interpret information, identify patterns, and present insight clearly. This ensures that governance decisions are based on stronger evidence. The data science builds more advanced data analysis skills to help teams analyze large and varied data sets, identify patterns, and understand where sensitive or unmanaged data may exist. It also supports earlier risk detection, clearer reporting, and better decisions about governance, controls, and data protection. The DevOps engineer finally helps to reduce operational risk from unmanaged integrations and poor change control. It also equips teams with the skills to improve how services are built, tested, released, and monitored, supporting more secure delivery and resilience. We also have a number of business skills training courses available, and we'd start off with the Authentic Leadership for Senior Leaders, as cyber capability is not only technical. These business skills help leaders and teams communicate risk clearly, influence cyber safe behaviors, strengthen governance, and lead the change needed to protect valuable information. Building and managing stakeholder relationships is important as strong stakeholder engagement across technical, operational, and leadership teams helps bridge the gap between IT and business strategy. Influencing with integrity is important as cybersecurity often depends on changing behaviors, gaining stakeholder buy-in, and influencing decisions without relying on authority. For leading during periods of change, moving from reactive firefighting to a proactive cybersecurity posture requires behavior change, new government habits, and better ways of working. The mastery in the communication skills is important as cyber risk, governance, and compliance need to be explained clearly to non technical teams so people understand what they need to do differently. If any of the courses I've mentioned sound of interest to you or would be of benefit to your business, please get in touch with either your relationship manager or via ilx.com. Right, now it's time for some of your questions. So let's see if we have any questions. Can't see any questions on my side. Are you able to see any, William?
There's a question here. Someone was asking, why would I want to, you know, what is the value of the certified ethical hacker for me if I'm designing a security program? And with the different courses, why do I want to understand that? And um, I would approach that as I may be leading a security program, or I may be an auditor, and at a certain level, I want to know what the malicious actors are doing. So members of the board, maybe they're not going to take that ethical hacker course, but definitely even if you're a security manager and you're not hacking systems every day, but to actually get an appreciation of the skill sets, sometimes that could be advantageous for folks just to realize some of those engagements so that there's sometimes it takes away some of the smoke and mirrors. Oh my gosh. Well, no, if you attend like the certified ethical hacker, you're actually doing some of those attacks. And then the sort of the light bulb goes off. So, and it also makes you a better makes you a better consumer of those services in a way. Because when someone's offering you a product, it's you know some of the questions to ask them, and maybe you're not going to be up to date on the latest and greatest vulnerabilities today, but you're going to know certain questions to ask of those providers of what they are doing. And so there still is some value there, those folks who are leading security programs, to understand what the hackers are doing by getting that immersion. So sometimes that's still, there's still an advantage for that. Let's see, what else? Who do we have here? Let's see. Oops. Stepping through the interface here. Yeah, I mentioned ITIL. ITIL has gone through a few different iterations. I think originally I was ITIL version 3, and then ITIL version 4 was introduced, and ITIL version 5 is the current release. And it helps think about reusability of different functions, the concept of it's a service, and keeping in mind the customer mindset, which that helps a lot with information technology as well as security, because sometimes it gives the technical staff an appreciation of what the reason that the technology staff or the security staff are performing a function is because it meets the needs of the business. It's what is important to the business side of it. And recognizing that some of those processes are also reusable. That's one of the other key takeaways that comes out of ITIL. When you have the concept of a service that you're doing this function, and you're gathering metrics as part of that service, and now this starts helping the business see value, because the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. I always struggle with that R when I'm trying to remember the metrics, the metrics for your technology and security stack and for your risk management. That actually helps defend the choice of implementing technology and cybersecurity, is because you're able to calculate these performance indicators and risk indicators that then underscore the business justification of why that investment was made.
Excellent. And I see we've got one more question. Where should my team start if we need to improve cybersecurity awareness and reduce risk across the organization?
That, I pause because if someone gives you a quick answer, they haven't stopped to think about it. And sometimes you see a question, you're like, well, let me take a stop here. Now, part of that, you take a risk-based approach, and definitely ISAC with the CISA and the CISM, they've added more of that risk-based approach to their questions. Where should my team start if we need to improve cybersecurity awareness and reduce risk across the organization? So senior management, I've seen a lot of organizations, they will take some sort of introduction to cybersecurity, maybe not security plus, because senior management's not going to attend the certification. But we've also done some custom training where it was almost security plus, but we didn't drill in some of the things that senior management didn't need. Oftentimes, senior management, the leaders, getting them the knowledge of the cybersecurity landscape, because the reason I say that is because senior management sets the tone. They have the governance. They're controlling what the organization does. They're controlling the business and directing the business. They're setting the strategy. And so it educates the senior management on the cybersecurity side of things. And I don't want to say risks, because cybersecurity, technology and cybersecurity is both an opportunity and a threat at times. If you manage it well, it's an opportunity. You just have to be mindful that there are some risks there. And you can't eliminate the risks, but you can be ready for them. So a lot of times it's that the introduction of cybersecurity, and you'll actually have some of your leadership in those sessions. Not, and again, just like with the ethical hacking class, they're not going to hack a system, but with an introduction to cybersecurity, that could be a good starting point for the that you have your senior management have that exposure to cybersecurity at the introductory level, and then you recognize, then you go down your org chart, and this is where there's no one size fits all. What does your staff look like? And you can start, so you could put the governance in place, and then you can start looking at developing learning plans for the, and it should be appropriate. So if someone is, during the talk, I mentioned the bank teller. The bank teller has a certain set of information they need to have. The folks who are standing up your technology stack, they have a different set of skills they need to develop. And so oftentimes, starting with the senior management, getting getting the senior management understanding of the cybersecurity, and how it's, it's cybersecurity is both it's that opportunity, but it does have risks, and getting that that taste there for senior management, so that then it can be baked into the various plans. Because some of one of the best explanations I heard of securities, oftentimes technology is go very fast, and security, cybersecurity, they're the guardrails that keep you on the road. That maybe you can't go as fast, but you're going to get to your destination, and you're going to get to your destination safely.
Perfect. So I'm just checking now. I don't think we have any more questions. So I just wanted to say to everyone in attendance on the webinar right now, thank you so much for joining. We hope you found it useful. As mentioned, we've recorded today's session, and you will receive an email tomorrow with the link to the recording. You can find out more about all of the courses we discussed today on our website, or by speaking to your relationship manager as well. Thanks a lot, and have a good rest of your day.